Hey, what's going on, everybody? Mojave Trooper here, back with another Saber video. And what I have for you today is a video showcasing my thin neck lightsaber collection from Dave Parkin art. So these are all made by Dave Parkin. And if you don't know who Dave Parkin is, he's a very talented and knowledgeable sabersmith from the RPF. He's located in the UK. And he's done lightsabers for a while. I think first he started with the I see you have constructed a new lightsaber, and then he moved on to other variants. His latest one being the V2 and V3 runs, his second V2 and V3 runs. But I do really recommend him because he's, like I said, he's an amazing sabersmith. He does really good replicas. He has amazing customer service, is always communicative when it comes to his runs, and I cannot recommend him enough because these days when it comes to this hobby, we really need people like that. But yeah, I mean, he has done, as you can see, he has done a lot of different runs with different variants of Luke's lightsaber as well as an Obi-Wan run. These are currently located or set in a way that they are, in the order that they were made, lineage wise. But I'm just going to talk about them in the order that I got them. So, first off, we have the hero. So, this is, the version of Luke's lightsaber that everybody knows and loves. And, this one was made back in, this run was made back in 2023. I think it was announced in 2022, but then the run was made in 2023. Originally, if you remember, I had already compared this one to the Mom of All Heroes by Veracity Labs, as well as the Anakin Starkiller hero, which both of those are amazing hilts, by the way. But those two are installable. The Anakin Starkiller obviously is a little bit less installable than the Mom of All Heroes, but this one is static. This one I would say is the hilt that got me more into static hilts and installable hilts, just because how great it is. Back when he announced it, I wasn't too interested, but then I found out he was doing finished commissions, or already finished hilts. Because if you know the RPF, most of the runs that go on there are mostly DIY kits that you do paint, you do have to paint and finish yourself. While I see the benefit of that because, for some people it's fun to finish hilts themselves, I would just like something that's already finished and ready for display. So when he announced that he was doing finished commissions, I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm getting one. And so I did. This one is done in the Star Wars Identities configuration. So basically what that means is it has a lot of scratches and paint chips. It's just how it was seen during that exhibit. And then, of course, you have the reveal board, which I've talked about in my comparison. Like I said, he offered a lot of options when it came to the reveal board. He offered, of course, his own replica, and he offered also vintage ones. So this one is a vintage one. However, this is the B variant. There's the A variant and the B variant. The A variant would be more accurate to, the real prop. But this one is a B variant. It's cheaper, more common, and I have no problem going with this one because it looks almost identical except for the traces. So I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll have it. The vector board clamp card is also from a vintage vector board. And then this switch is from an Exactra 20. Now, from what I've heard, it's not confirmed whether or not it's supposed to be an Exactra 20 switch, but that's, the best theory that Dave and some other people have. And then the rails, I went with the copper ones on this one because he offered brass and copper. I just thought copper looked more like what they would use on the hero. There's different theories again as to whether they were brass or they were copper, but I went with copper just because, all my life I've known, when I think of the hero, I think, copper rails. There's also a theory that they are brass rails with painted copper, and so I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I guess we'll find out for sure when we see it on public display at the Lucas Museum. But the copper ones do look really nice. So this is the hero. Oh, and then of course the tri-ring is weathered. It's rusted black, just how it was seen during that exhibit. But yeah, this is the hero right here. Moving forward, alongside his hero run, of course, he announced that he would be doing a Yuma, and I see you have constructed a new lightsaber commission options. So I did get a Yuma. Of course, we know that these three, the Yuma, the I see you have constructed a new lightsaber, and the hero V1, are all the same hilt, the same physical prop, just during different stages. So this is how it was seen during the sail barge scenes when he was on the sail barge. And then it was made into the I see you have constructed a new lightsaber. The control box, was first of all, it was refurbished. The blade was taken off. It was refurbished, repainted. The control box was modified. These two black buttons were added and rails were added. Now with these ones, I did go with brass rails, just because that's what it looks like during that scene. Again, there's a lot of different theories. Another theory is that during this scene and the cave scene, they used brass rails and then they switched them over to painted copper or painted copper for the exhibits. This one, the clamp card, is not vintage. It's just a regular one of Dave's replicas. But then the I see you have constructed lightsaber hilt was made into the hero. The control box was modified yet again. The rails were modified. They were added a reveal board, and then the arrows were added. And I think Dave did a really nice job replicating these three. After that run was done, he announced that he would be doing a V2 and V3 run. Of course, I signed up for it because I really like these three. I'm not a big fan of the V2 and the V3. The V3 especially, I'm not a big fan of them. But since I am a big fan of Luke, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll just get these two to complete the lineage, of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. And when he announced the run, I signed up for both a V2 and V3. Only two of them, or only one of each is what I mean. Just because, as it is with the hero, there's a lot of variance when it comes to the V2. With the V2, there is a deleted sandstorm variant where it's, the paint is less chipped and more present. Then there's a throne room scene, which is a little bit shinier. As you can see, like this one, I went with the throne room scene. And then there's a post-production, which is, a little bit more tarnished and rusted and a little bit more paint missing. But I decided to go with the look of how it looked on screen during the throne room scenes. And same with the V3. There's the production look of the V3, and then there is the NASA look of the V3. The one everybody knows mostly. The one that's refurbished, repainted. Chrome tape was added to the clamp. I don't like that variant very much, just because it didn't show up on screen. And I know it sounds a little bit ironic because neither did the hero. This version never made it to screen. But I don't know. If I decided if I was going for a V3, I would just go for the production look. Which, again, Dave did an amazing job with it. The only modification I did was the clamp card. Originally, it came with, I think it was a Skywampa card. It was okay, but I prefer the vintage look of the sloth furnace one, which is this one right here. So I switched it out, no biggie, and I just think it looks nicer. Again, there was nothing wrong with that one, but that's the modification I did to it. The V2, a nice thing about it that made me want to get Dave's is that it has a spinning emitter, which is like the real thing. So, as you can see, the V3 does not, and I don't know if that's just because there's no evidence that on screen it had a spinning emitter. Some people say it had gaffer's tape. I just don't see it, but some people do say that. Although this particular look is based on that, I think it was a behind the photo scene with Vader holding it on the Endor platform. So that's what this look is based on. I think during the throne room scenes, people say it had gaffer's tape, but I'm not really sure about that. And then after that, I got his Obi-Wan run, which happened before all of these. So the Obi-Wan run, I think it started in 2022 and ended in 2023, and then the Hero run started. So I wasn't part of the Obi-Wan run. I bought this one secondhand from a seller on the RPF. And, I've always been on the lookout for a New Hope Obi-Wan lightsaber. But I wasn't really sure which one because, again, when it comes to these hilts, there's always a lot of debate about whether, which one's the most accurate, what isn't accurate, etc. So I went with the Roman props, which I also have in my collection. I'm not going to be comparing it to this one just because there's plenty of comparisons out there already. So if you want to know more about the differences between the Dave Parkin and the Roman props, then I would check out Sith Slayer on YouTube and also Crucible Custom Props. But I initially went with the Roman props just because these are really rare as well. Like, you can't find them. I think right now there's a lot for sale on the RPF. I don't know why, but people are selling theirs. But the problem with those is that most of them are either raw machine finish or they're weathered, but not fully like this one. So this one is fully weathered in the Chronicles configuration, which is what I wanted. With the weathering marks here on the balance pipe, the chrome tape here on the clamp, and then the marks here, the cotter pins right here, and then the rivets right here. That's what I wanted on my Obi-Wan. I was going to do that eventually with the Roman props, but then I found this one, the Dave Parkin. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. It was for a good price, really good price too. And I'm really a big fan of this one. I'm a fan of the Romans, but this one, the weathering job that was done for it is really great. Of course, I didn't do any modifications to it. The only one I did was with the wind vane. Of course, since this is made from, it's a replica, but it's supposed to be based on a rifle grenade, wind vane moves. And I don't like that. Call me crazy, but I don't like that it moves. What I did was, to keep it in place, I put a little microscopic piece of art tape between the threads so that it would, it still moves, but it's pretty tight. And I like it that way, it makes it feel more like a static replica. It probably did move on the real prop, but, I like it better this way when I'm occasionally holding it and I don't want it to move. And then, same thing with the pommel. I'm pretty convinced that it does not have the pommel cap, the real prop doesn't have the pommel cap. But still, I'm leaving it on just because I want to keep it on just because of the whole vintage parts aspect of it with the Armitage Shanks stamping on it and stuff. So I'm going to keep it there. And then another debate is whether or not the wind vane had tape on it. I don't think it did personally, but according to Dave and his own interpretation and research, it did. Which, I mean, I respect that and it makes sense. So I'm leaving it on. But basically, this hilt's amazing, and I'm glad to have it in my collection. So, of course, these are mostly Luke Skywalker lightsabers. But we know that, it started out with Obi-Wan's A New Hope lightsaber. The V2 was his stunt lightsaber that he also used in A New Hope. And then the V3 as well, or it was made to be a stunt lightsaber, or his stunt lightsaber. Then came the Yuma, and then came, the Yuma state of the hero, and then came the I see you have constructed a new lightsaber, and then finally the hero. So, anyway, that's really all I have to talk about. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Dave Parkin again, because he is an amazing replica maker. Really great hilts, amazing weathering and painting, and I wish he made other replicas other than Luke. I wish he made more prequel hilt replicas, because if he did, they would be amazing, just as these are. So I'm going to leave a link to his website and Facebook page on the description. Make sure to check him out. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you really liked it, make sure you like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you.